and I've been working on mutual aid and support from December 2023, so almost a year and a half now. I want to start with a story before I talk about the current situation. Around June last year, there was a woman called Raja. Raja is in her mid-30s. She had 4 kids and her husband, and they were staying in a tent. They started hearing shooting and tanks, so they all lied down in the tent. And every time her kids say they want to pee, she says, pee yourself, because the fear was so big that they might get killed. An hour later, she heard the people from the tent nearby walk out with a white flag. It was a woman and a little child. Immediately, the tanks shot them and shot everyone else in that tent. So Raja knew that they can't move and they can't do anything. While Raja and her husband and kids were waiting, her kids were pleading and crying and confused. And then one of her kids screamed. When the kids screamed, a yellow light switched on in the tent. That light is the light of the tank. And immediately, the tanks came over to the tent and ran the father and the boys over. Raja grabbed her 2-year-old girl, Sana, and tried to run out from the tent. But it was too late, because Raja and her 2-year-old daughter, while carrying her, got pushed over by the tank, and it ran over half her body and her daughter's body. At this point, Raja looked back after the tank left, and she saw that her husband is still breathing. She said that he was covered in blood, except for his face. There was not a drop of blood on his face. One of his arms was completely gone. She wasn't sure if any of his legs were gone. In that moment, her husband kept repeating, Ashhadu anna la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, which means I bear witness that there's no God but God. She asked him, wake the boys up, wake the boys up. He couldn't move. The boys were dead. It was a hard reality for Raja to accept. And then her son Ibrahim, 7 years old, came from underneath his dad. His dad had covered him when the tank came over, and somehow the 7-year-old came out from underneath with not a scratch on his body. Ibrahim came out crying, and his mom said, go to your dad. The 7-year-old looked behind, saw his dad's arm gone, and said, I don't want to go near him. So Ibrahim ran to his mother, and she held both Sana and Ibrahim in her arms. While she was holding Sana and Ibrahim, she saw a woman walk by with a bunch of kids. She screamed and begged and told her, please take my son. Her husband, with a few breaths left, said, please, please take our son. So the lady took the son and left. And in this moment, her husband started to say, Allahu Akbar, which means God is great, God is great. The little girl started to repeat Allahu Akbar, because she thought her dad was doing the call to prayer. She didn't understand what was happening. And the dad passed away. And then Raja didn't know what to do. Her 2 dead boys and her husband, who were ran over by a tank with not many limbs left. And she had this 2-year-old in her arms. She couldn't walk. One of her legs was completely smashed, and her arm was completely smashed. But she thought to herself, I need to be alive for Sana and for Ibrahim. She bent down, looked at her daughter, and said, "Where do you want to go?" And she said, "I want to go play with my auntie." And in this moment, Sanaa grabbed her mom's neck and Raja started crawling. There was still a lot of shooting. There were still tanks around, but she thought, "I'll crawl as much as I can." She crawled and crawled and crawled on the sand until she reached a paveway. When she started crawling, she felt it scratch into her skin, and she thought to herself, "I can't do this." When I was talking to Raja, she described it as screaming a scream that's so loud that it reached the seven heavens, begging God to help her and Sanaa survive. In that moment, another woman walked by, and she told her, "Please take Sanaa, please take Sanaa." But Sanaa refused to go with this woman. She screamed, screamed, screamed. The woman got scared and walked away. When the woman reached the other side where people were, she started pointing at Raja and telling the men to go help her. And the men told her, "If we walk over to you, we'll get shot." So they just shouted and motivated her and told her, "You need to keep crawling until we can come and get you." Raja kept crawling, and then she doesn't remember what happened. And what happened is someone did grab her and Sanaa, and they did survive. This was in June. I spoke to Raja regularly after that. And when the borders opened between the north and the south, her whole family went to the north, where they're from. And I told Sanaa, "Come stay in our camp, which is in central Gaza." She said, "No way." And I said, "Why?" She said, "I need to go find the bodies of my husband and two boys." Her two boys who were 14 and 11, and she didn't even hear their voice before they died. And I told her that that's in the buffer zone and there's no way she's going to be able to retrieve the bodies. So she told me, "It's fine, I'd rather have a bone than nothing. I need to bury them." So Raja refused to come to our camp and decided to stay in Khan Yunis so that she can be close to the bodies of her sons and husband. I asked her, I was like, "How do you feel about the ceasefire?" She told me, "When the ceasefire was announced, I screamed and cried so much that they had to take me to a hospital and give me sedatives because I couldn't imagine a life back in Gaza without my husband and two boys." What I love about Raja is that after everything she's been through, she went to physiotherapy in a very overcrowded hospital with a leg that was shattered by a tank, something that none of us could ever imagine. The physiotherapist told her, "Your case is hopeless, you need to leave Gaza." She told him, "Just teach me what to do." And in early January, Raja was able to walk. She limps, but she walked, and she did this all by herself. She is determined for Sanaa and for Ibrahim and for the memory of her husband and kids to keep going. The reason I tell you Raja's story is because we see these bodies on the screen and we see these dead kids and we see these dead people and they just become numbers. But they're not numbers, they're people. They're people with lives, they're people with names, they're people with hobbies, they're people with dreams. And Raja is one out of thousands of people that I've spoken to. The reality is in Gaza right now is that the borders have been closed for over a month. Very little food is accessible to people. A plate of rice that cost $2.50 or $3 before the genocide started again, the loud genocide I call it, because there was a silent genocide during the ceasefire, now costs $8.50. So just to have a plate of rice, people need to pay $8.50. We're predicting that within a week it will be $12 to $15, and within 2 weeks, finding a plate of rice is going to be impossible. So for me, as someone who has been working in mutual aid, who has been working in activism for a very long time, I would say the last 2 weeks have been the worst weeks, and makes the 15, 16 months of genocide seem like a breeze. The reality today is our guys called us and said we might have to be displaced ourselves. 2 of the guys who work with us in the north. And they said, we have a lot of money, people are on the street, we don't know what to do. So we said, just go distribute the money. Just go distribute as much money as you can, and then move, do whatever you need to do. And when they came back, they said, we've just distributed everything with tears in our eyes. They said, everyone looks exhausted, the streets are full, tens of thousands of people moving from Jabalia and from Beit Lahia. Shuja'iyya has been completely obliterated in the last 2 days. We can't even keep track of the dead. And I feel disgusted by myself being in this country. Because every single person, whether a tourist or a resident or a British citizen, is complicit. We all have blood on our hands. This room shouldn't have 30, 40 people. This room should have 3,000, 4,000, 30,000. Yet walking here, I see people walking around as if there's nothing happening. Our lives as Palestinians have become so worthless. And it's so painful. It's so painful to see Amal al-Loh, a 2-week-old baby, beheaded yesterday. And we're just exhausted from repeating ourselves over and over and over. So this is the time, really. This is the time to not just speak out. This is the time to do direct action. This is the time to do whatever is possible to stop this. Because people in Gaza are not made out of something different. They're just human beings, just like every single person in this room. They have feelings. They're exhausted, they're frustrated, they're angry, they feel alone, they feel left out. So let's not just put them on a pedestal and pretend that they can survive this because they're better than us. They're not. They're exhausted. Thank you.